What happens when an executive adopts Buddhist practices for a month? Let me tell you a story that will shake everything you believe about personal change. For 30 days, I closely followed the journey of someone who was exactly where you might be right now, lost in the middle of corporate chaos, living on autopilot, feeling that something fundamental was missing from life. What happened after those 30 days of strictly following Buddhist principles was something even I didn't expect to witness. I was skeptical at first. How could someone used to spreadsheets, targets, and results adapt to an ancient philosophy based on detachment and contemplation? But the data doesn't lie. Recent studies from UFPB reveal that Buddhist practices activate deep spiritual perceptions in a matter of days, even in completely westernized contexts. Buddhist mindfulness apps recorded over 100 million downloads in 2024. With 70% of users reporting a significant reduction in stress after just 1 month of practice. The beginning of the journey. The first day started at 5 in the morning. While the city still slept, our executive sat in the lotus position for the first time in his life. Metta meditation, focused on cultivating compassion, seemed impossible for someone used to daily competition. But something happened in those first 20 minutes of silence. He began to perceive his own suffering in a completely new way. It wasn't just work stress or the pressure for results. It was something deeper, a constant dissatisfaction he had carried for years without even realizing it. The Four Noble Truths of Buddhism became real in a frightening way. The first truth, about the existence of suffering, was no longer a theory. He felt it in his skin, how he lived in a constant state of anxiety, always chasing the next goal, never satisfied with what he had. The second truth, about the origin of suffering, became clear when he realized how his endless desires kept him trapped in a vicious cycle of dissatisfaction. By the third day, something shifted. Vipassana meditation, focused on the pure observation of thoughts without judgment, revealed mental patterns he didn't even know existed. Negative thoughts about colleagues, obsessive worries about the future, a constant inner critic that never stopped. For the first time in years, he was able to observe these thoughts without being dragged away by them. It was as if he had discovered a pause button for the mind. Overcoming resistance. The first week brought internal resistance. The ego, used to being in control, fought against the practice of detachment. In the office, old patterns tried to resurface, the urge to react with anger to an impolite email, the anxiety before a big presentation, the impulse to work late to impress the boss. But now there was a fundamental difference. He could see these impulses arising before being dominated by them. Mindfulness, applied to the corporate environment, began to generate surprising results. Meetings that were once battlefields became spaces for genuine collaboration. He discovered that truly listening, without thinking about the next answer, created a human connection he had forgotten existed. Colleagues began to comment on a change in his presence, a calmness that wasn't there before. In the second week, the practice of non-violence, the Buddhist principle of ahimsa, extended beyond physical actions. He stopped violating himself mentally with destructive self-criticism. He stopped violating others with silent judgments. Compassion, which started as a forced meditation exercise, became a natural response to the suffering of others. A colleague going through personal problems found in him a support she didn't expect. The path and the transformation. The Noble Eightfold Path, the 8 steps to liberation from suffering, ceased to be an abstract concept and became a practical daily guide. Right speech meant stopping office gossip and using words that build rather than destroy. Right action meant making decisions based on ethical principles, even when it meant losing personal advantages. Right livelihood made him question if his work truly contributed to the collective well-being. The physical transformation was also visible. Chronic stress, which manifested as back pain and insomnia, began to subside. Regular meditation was literally changing his neurochemistry. Studies show that Buddhist contemplative practices reduce levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, while increasing the production of serotonin and endorphins. He was sleeping better, waking up with more energy, and feeling a vitality he hadn't experienced in years. By the third week, the concept of impermanence became liberating. Projects that didn't go as planned, criticism from superiors. Even praise and success, everything came to be seen as temporary phenomena. This perception brought unprecedented emotional stability. He was no longer riding an emotional roller coaster, going up and down according to external events. He had found an inner center that remained calm regardless of the circumstances. New perspectives. The practice of gratitude, inspired by Buddhist teachings on the appreciation of life, completely transformed his perspective. Simple things like breakfast, the commute to work, or casual conversations with colleagues gained a different quality. He was truly present, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. Life stopped being a frantic race and became an experience rich in details that previously went unnoticed. Detachment, perhaps the most difficult Buddhist principle for an ambitious executive, revealed its true power in the fourth week. It didn't mean stopping caring or giving up on goals. It meant not being emotionally dependent on the results. He continued to work with dedication, but he was no longer identified with professional success or failure. It was as if he had discovered an inner freedom that no one could take from him. The recitation of mantras, especially those of Vajrasattva for karmic purification, initially seemed strange to someone raised in Western culture. But the conscious repetition of these sacred words created a state of concentration and tranquility he had never experienced. Modern Buddhist retreats, like those organized by Kadampa centers, show that this ancient practice continues to transform contemporary lives. Participants report mental clarity and a significant reduction in emotional suffering. Results and collective impact. Personal relationships also changed profoundly. His wife noticed a different presence, an ability to listen without trying to solve every problem immediately. His children found a more patient father, less reactive to the small provocations of daily life. Friends commented on a serenity that radiated from him, a magnetic quality that attracted deeper and more meaningful conversations. At work, the transformation was even more evident. Decisions that were once made on impulse, driven by ego or fear, now passed through the filter of Buddhist wisdom. He would ask himself, does this action reduce suffering or increase it? Does it benefit only me or contribute to the collective good? Is it aligned with my deepest values? These simple questions revolutionized his leadership. The team began to respond differently. Without the constant pressure and anxious energy he used to carry, his subordinates felt freer to express creative ideas. Productivity increased not because he was demanding more, but because he had created an environment of trust and genuine collaboration. Results came naturally, as a consequence of a more harmonious process. Integrating wisdom into modern life. Morning meditation became sacred, a moment of connection with something greater than himself. It wasn't religiosity in the traditional sense, but a practical spirituality that connected him to the interdependence of all things. He began to see how his actions affected not only his life but the lives of everyone around him. This perception brought a loving responsibility, a genuine care for the collective well-being. His diet also changed. The principle of nonviolence led him to question food choices. It wasn't a radical or dogmatic change, but a greater awareness of the impact of his choices. Eating became an act of mindfulness, an opportunity to nourish the body with gratitude and awareness. He discovered flavors he had lost in the rush of hurried meals. Conscious consumption extended beyond food. Impulsive purchases, which once served to fill emotional voids, completely lost their appeal. He discovered he needed much less than he imagined to be happy. Material detachment brought unexpected financial freedom, but more importantly, a psychological freedom from constantly desiring new things. The conclusion of the experiment. In the final week, the integration of all these principles created a powerful synergy. Compassion informed his decisions, mindfulness maintained his presence, detachment preserved his inner peace, and nonviolence guided his actions. They were no longer separate practices, but aspects of a new way of living. He had found a philosophy of life that worked in the real world, not just in isolated monasteries. The objective results were also impressive. His professional performance improved significantly, not because he was working more hours, but because he was working with more clarity and purpose. Relationships deepened. Physical and mental health reached levels he hadn't experienced in decades. But most important was a sense of internal alignment, of living according to his deepest values. Today, months after the experiment, he maintains the practices that most impacted his life. Morning meditation remains non-negotiable. Mindfulness permeates his daily activities. Compassion guides his interactions. Detachment preserves his emotional stability. He discovered that you don't need to be a monk to live according to Buddhist principles. It is possible to be an enlightened executive, a compassionate professional, a conscious leader. Call to action. This transformation is within your reach too. You don't need to drop everything and become a monk. You don't need to believe in reincarnation or karma in a religious sense. Buddhist principles work as a technology of consciousness, practical methods tested by millions of people over millennia. They are tools for living well that adapt perfectly to contemporary life. Start small. 5 minutes of meditation in the morning. A moment of gratitude before meals. A conscious breath before reacting to stressful situations. Small seeds that can grow and completely transform your life experience. Now, I want to hear from you. Which part of this transformation touched your heart the most? Which Buddhist principle would you like to try first? Share your own experience with contemplative practices in the comments, or tell me if you have the courage to do your own 30-day experiment. Your story could inspire others seeking a more conscious and meaningful life. If this content awakens something in you, subscribe to the channel for more insights on integrating ancient wisdom with modern life. Leave a like so more people can discover these transformative tools. And remember, the change you seek in the world begins with the change you cultivate in yourself. Until the next video, may you find peace in the middle of chaos and wisdom in every present moment. And before we say goodbye, I want to share some of the deepest lessons that emerged from this journey. Because they might be exactly what you need to hear today. The silent revolution of mindfulness. What strikes me most about this story isn't just the external results, the improved work, the harmonious relationships, or the renewed physical health. What truly stands out is the silent revolution that took place in the quality of this executive's presence. He discovered something that our modern culture has completely forgotten, that life doesn't happen in our plans for the future or our memories of the past. Life happens now, in this very moment. Imagine for a second what it would be like if you could truly savor your breakfast, instead of just swallowing it while checking emails. What if you could really hear what your partner is saying, instead of just waiting for your turn to speak? What if you could walk down the street noticing the colors, the sounds, the texture of the air on your skin, instead of being completely lost in the problems you need to solve? This executive discovered that every ordinary moment of life can become extraordinary when experienced with total presence. Morning meditation wasn't just a relaxation technique, it was daily training for being truly alive. The paradox of detachment, conquering more by being less. One of the most counterintuitive discoveries of this journey was the paradox of detachment. The less he clung to results, the better those results became. The less he forced situations, the more naturally they flowed in his favor. This goes against everything we are taught about success in Western culture, doesn't it? Let me explain how this works in practice. When we are desperately attached to a specific outcome, our energy becomes tense, our creativity is blocked, and ironically, we become less effective at reaching exactly what we want. It's like trying to force yourself to fall asleep. The harder you try, the more awake you stay. Buddhist detachment doesn't mean not caring or not having goals. It means doing your best and then releasing control over how things must happen. It is the difference between rowing with all your might downstream, taking advantage of the current, versus rowing with all your might upstream, fighting against the nature of things. The wisdom of impermanence, dancing with change. Perhaps the most liberating lesson was the deep understanding of impermanence. Everything changes. Always. This isn't just an abstract philosophical theory, it is the fundamental reality of existence. The cells in your body are constantly dying and being born. Your thoughts arise and disappear. Your emotions come and go like waves in the ocean. When you truly understand this, not just intellectually, but in your very cells, something magical happens. You stop resisting difficult changes so much, because you know they too will pass. And you stop clinging so desperately to the good moments, because you realize that trying to freeze them is impossible and unnecessary. The executive in our story lived this firsthand during a financial crisis at his company. Instead of panicking, he navigated the situation with impressive mental clarity. He knew that difficult phase was temporary, just as the previous phase of abundance had been. This perspective allowed him to make wiser decisions and lead his team with serenity amidst the chaos. Compassion as a corporate superpower. Here is something that will surprise you: compassion became his most powerful leadership tool. I'm not talking about being nice or permissive. I'm talking about a much more sophisticated quality, the ability to see the suffering of others clearly and respond in a wise, effective way. When an employee was constantly late, instead of just reprimanding them, he investigated with genuine curiosity. He discovered the young man was caring for a sick mother. Together, they found a solution that worked for everyone. The result? An extremely loyal and productive employee who felt truly valued. Compassion didn't make him weaker, it made him emotionally intelligent. The practice of gratitude, reprogramming the brain. At the end of every day, he dedicated a few minutes to acknowledging 3 things he felt genuinely grateful for. It didn't have to be anything big. Sometimes it was just the taste of a well-prepared lunch or a sincere smile from a colleague. His brain literally began to reprogram itself to notice more positive aspects of reality. Not because he was deluding himself, but because he was training his attention to perceive the abundance that was always there. This shift made him more creative and resilient. A grateful brain is a brain more open to possibilities. Silence as a source of creativity. In a world of 24-hour information bombardment, silence is a rare luxury. But he discovered that silence is not just the absence of noise, it is a fertile space where creativity blooms. During his morning meditations, insights about complex projects would simply emerge from the mental stillness. He began incorporating pockets of silence throughout his day, 2 minutes of conscious breathing before meetings, or a quiet walk during lunch. These small oases became his greatest sources of clarity. From drama to harmony. The most visible change for those around him was the quality of his relationships. He stopped reacting automatically to emotional triggers. He learned to create an internal space between the stimulus and his response. This transformed his family life. Arguments that used to escalate into major conflicts began to resolve harmoniously. He discovered that when you are not constantly on the defensive, other people naturally lower their defenses too. The invitation, your own journey. So, my friend, here we are at the end of this story. But this isn't an ending, it's an invitation. An invitation for you to see what would happen if you gave these ancient practices a real chance. I'm not asking you to believe blindly. I'm inviting you to be your own personal scientist. Test these tools in the laboratory of your own experience. You have 30 days to discover if your life can be different. The first practical steps you might be asking, where do I start? Let's do something right now. Breathe. But don't just breathe, observe it. Feel the air entering your nostrils, expanding your lungs, and leaving naturally. Do this for 5 conscious breaths. That's it. You've just taken your first step. It doesn't start with complex rituals, it starts with the most natural thing you do, performed with total attention. The method of small steps. One of the biggest traps I see people falling into when they decide to start a meditation practice is what I call the all-or-nothing syndrome. They think, I'm going to meditate for an hour a day, every single day, starting tomorrow. And we all know how that story ends, don't we? True wisdom lies in starting ridiculously small. So small that it would be impossible to fail. So small that you almost feel guilty for not doing more. Because here is the secret, it's not about the initial quantity, it's about the consistency. It's about training your brain to associate this new practice with success, not with failure. Start with 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes a day. Pick a specific time, perhaps right after brushing your teeth in the morning, or just before bed. Create a trigger, an anchor within your existing routine. During these 2 minutes, simply sit comfortably, close your eyes, and observe your breath. When your mind wanders, and it will wander, that is completely normal, gently bring your attention back to the breath. No judgment, no frustration. Treat yourself like you would a small child who got distracted, with patience and kindness. Dealing with internal resistance. Now, I need to be honest with you about something that will happen. Your mind will resist. It will create every possible excuse for you not to do this. I don't have time. This isn't working. I'm terrible at this. Maybe I'm just not the meditating type. This resistance isn't a bug, it's a feature. It is exactly how your brain was designed to function. It wants to keep you in your comfort zone, doing the same things you've always done. Change, even positive change, is perceived as a threat by your primitive nervous system. When this resistance appears, recognize it as a sign that you are on the right track. You are literally reprogramming decades of conditioning. Of course there will be pushback. The key is not to eliminate the resistance, but to develop a different relationship with it. Instead of fighting it, observe it with curiosity. Interesting, my mind is telling me I don't have 2 minutes to meditate, yet I have time to check my phone 15 times an hour. Expanding beyond formal meditation. As your 2-minute practice becomes natural, which may take a few weeks, you can start to integrate mindfulness into other activities of your day. Turn routine tasks into opportunities for practice. When you are washing the dishes, really wash the dishes. Feel the temperature of the water, the texture of the soap, the weight of the plates. Instead of mentally planning the rest of your day or dwelling on work problems, be completely present with the task at hand. When you are walking, even if it's just from the car to the office, walk consciously. Feel your feet touching the ground, notice the movement of your body, perceive the environment around you. These moments of presence, scattered throughout your day, are just as valuable as formal meditation. The power of practical gratitude. One of the most powerful practices you can incorporate is conscious gratitude. But I'm not talking about superficial or forced gratitude. I'm talking about a specific and systematic practice. Every night before bed, identify 3 specific things you are grateful for from that day. But here is the crucial part: they cannot be the same generic things every day. Look for the details, the small moments you would normally ignore. I'm grateful the coffee was at the perfect temperature this morning. I'm grateful for how my colleague helped me with that project. I'm grateful for noticing how beautiful the sky looked on my way home. This practice trains your brain to actively scan for positive aspects of your experience. You are literally rewiring your neural circuits to notice what is working, instead of focusing only on what is missing or wrong. Navigating the challenges. I want to be completely transparent with you. There will be days when you won't want to meditate. There will be weeks when you completely forget your practice. There will be moments when you question if this is really making any difference at all. These are not signs of failure, they are normal, expected parts of the process. Transformation is not linear. It's like learning to ride a bike. You fall, you get up, you adjust, and you try again. Every failure is actually valuable information on how to improve your approach. If you miss a few days, don't turn it into an excuse to give up completely. Simply start again. No drama, no self-flagellation. Act as if it were the very first time. This ability to begin again, repeatedly, with kindness toward yourself, is one of the most valuable skills you can develop. Creating your environment for success. The environment where you practice matters more than you might think. It doesn't need to be an elaborate or special space, but it should be consistent and free from obvious distractions. It could be a specific chair in your living room, a corner of your bedroom, or even your car before you walk into work. The important thing is that it is the same place every day, if possible. This creates a psychological anchor that makes it easier to enter a meditative state. Turn off your phone or put it on airplane mode. These 2 minutes are yours. They are sacred. The world can wait 2 minutes for you. The subtle signs of transformation. As you develop your practice, start paying attention to the subtle signs of change. They may not be dramatic at first, but they are deeply significant. Maybe you'll notice that you don't react as intensely when someone cuts you off in traffic. Maybe you'll find you can listen to your partner or your children with more patience. Maybe you'll observe that your mind isn't ruminating on work problems late into the night. These small shifts in your daily experience are the true fruits of the practice. They are evidence that you are developing what neuroscientists call cognitive flexibility, the ability to respond instead of react, to choose your response instead of being hijacked by automatic patterns. So, here we are at the moment of truth. You have all the information you need. You know the science, you've heard the stories, and you understand the benefits. You have a practical, realistic plan to begin. The only thing left is your commitment. Not a commitment to perfection, but a commitment to consistency. A commitment to give yourself the chance to discover who you can become when you develop a more conscious relationship with your own mind. This commitment is to no one but yourself. It is an investment in your well-being, your inner peace, and your ability to live a more fulfilling and meaningful life. You deserve to experience life with less anxiety and more clarity. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Your first step is these 2 minutes a day. Simple, yet revolutionary. My invitation to you is this: commit to 30 days. Just 30 days of consistent practice. 2 minutes a day, at the same time, in the same place. Observe what happens. Be your own experiment. If after 30 days you feel this has added no value to your life, you can stop. You will have lost only 60 minutes of your month. But I suspect you will find that those 60 minutes were the most valuable investment you've made in yourself in a long time. Transformation is waiting for you. Your more conscious, fuller, more peaceful life is just one breath away. The moment is now. The choice is yours.